Welcome everybody, this is the SharePoint Patterns and Practices General Special Interest Group bi-weekly sync. Today is October 17th. It is 7 a.m. in the morning in Redmond, where I'm currently located. So I had a pretty early wake up again today, but that's fine. I'm going to talk about slightly why I'm here during the slides as well. Let's actually get moving on the slides. So today's agenda, well, we're going to talk about slightly our dev kitchen, what's happened this week in Redmond. I can't go to technical details too much on it, but it's good to know for you what's actually happening here. You might have seen that we had a dev kitchen this week with a selected group of customers and partners, and that will have an impact obviously in the future of things. Then we'll go through the open source projects. So what's happening from that side of the house. So we're going to walk through the material or updates with Erwin and Bert on that section. So what's happening with the PnP CSOM Core extension, PnP PowerShell, and modernization tooling. And after that, we were planning to have a demo with Tracy. Tracy unfortunately got a flu, and we needed to reschedule her for next time. So Chris jumped in and is doing a 10-minute column and view formatting magic because I wasn't sure what the topic is all about today. He jumped in on the last 10 minutes, so I was unable to update the slide. After that, Erwin is going to do a demo on how do you create reusable templates from existing SharePoint sites using the latest step-by-step process. So including all of the modern pages and capabilities and headers and footers and all of that. It's something which we touched quite a few times in this course, but I think the objective of this demo is really to show the cleanest possible path. These are the PowerShell commandlets, what do you use? This is the manual things, what you manipulate or modify after you extract the template, and this is how you repackage the template, and then this is how you apply to the existing tenant. So really walking through the clean setup without any additional, let's say, stories. Well, so to say, obviously there will be stories around the templating, but still. And then Bert is updating us on the latest on the modernization tooling, super great open source tooling. Usage is growing all the time. So partners and customers are finding this extremely useful around how do we transform from classic SharePoint to the modern SharePoint, especially in SharePoint Online. So moving away from classic publishing, classic blogs, classic theme sites to the modern experiences. And there's a lot of tooling around that one. So we're having an update on that. Now, a few updates again, or reminders, opportunities to participate with the community. So we do welcome definitely community demos in this course. We're more than happy to promote you, your skills, your demos, your code, your solution whenever possible. So if you're willing and interested on doing and joining this course and doing a live demo, please let us know. It is as simple as ping us in Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever messenger, however you can reach us, and then request a spot, and we'll schedule you on the agenda, and then agree on the timing and all of that. The demos themselves could be something which you build. There could be technical design discussions, which are definitely one option as well. So learnings around certain solutions, because those are super useful as well. Or then a GitHub sample, which you might have in your own GitHub or in a Microsoft GitHub, or contributor to the Microsoft GitHub, and walking through that scenario. You can definitely contribute in GitHub, so submit samples and demos in our GitHub repositories, and please, the most important thing, provide us feedback, letting us know what works and what doesn't work, so we're able to react on that. That's super critical, that we are able to improve our service and improve our behavior or functionalities towards you and the community in general. A few kind of a recap URLs which we keep on every single presentations. AKMS SP Dev Docs is the documentation part. AKMS SP Dev Videos is the videos where also the recordings of these community calls are getting shared, and all of the community demos, which we have a lot of them, are getting published through that channel. And then the AKMS SP Dev Issues is for the SharePoint developer issues. So if you run into any SharePoint developer issues in on-premises or in cloud, please let us know so we're able to jump and start investigating that by adding an entry into AKMS SP Dev Issues, and then I will start the process from there. Good. Moving on the actual topics. Like I said, I really don't have too many updates during this week related on SharePoint Developer Platform or Microsoft 365 platform in general. but because we had a dev kitchen in Redmond in building 33 from Monday until Wednesday. And this dev kitchen was all about Fluid framework and SharePoint framework, the VNX story around this combination, together with actually Office add-ins story as well. I can't go too much details in here, but let's recap what these things are. So Fluid framework is something which we announced in the build. We demoed that in build. It's almost, it is real-time live collaboration, or enables real-time live collaborations between people across the world and devices, which is really cool. So you're able to work on the same document or a functionality or components, and other people can see what you're doing on real time. And that's super cool framework, which we demoed, and there was a cool demos in build for that one. Then SharePoint framework relates on that one, as the SharePoint framework is really how we build extensibility. So how do we actually then build capabilities which are taking advantage of this real-time collaboration platform? So that's the SharePoint framework piece of it. And obviously, it's no longer just SharePoint framework, or no longer just SharePoint, because the SharePoint framework is getting extended across the Office 365 and can be used to develop Microsoft Teams tabs, which we talked about in the last time. That's already in GA, or Office add-ins themselves. We've demoed that in spring, and now we're kind of moving to this direction where we are truly combining the extensibility model as a one unified platform. So as long as you know how to develop on that platform, then you are able to define what is your targets. So basically, same piece of code can then work using Microsoft Teams or in Office add-ins, or as a SharePoint framework platform web part, or something else. So really taking advantage of the success and your feedback around the SharePoint framework and extending that to a higher level. And again, I don't want to go too much details on what we went through on the Dev Kitchen, but Dev Kitchen is really kind of the selected group of customers and partners getting invited on Redmond, where we then try out what we have done in engineering, collect the feedback. We do some hackathons, we built cool stuff. This time, actually, the winners of the hackathon were David Warner and Eric Overfill. So David and Eric joined up, and they built a really cool functionality which was taking advantage of multiple different areas of the Microsoft 365 platform, including then the Fluid framework and the new capabilities which we test about during the Dev Kitchen. So really cool stuff during there. We had Kieran from 5P Solutions from Australia winning as well, and then Alex Tarantiv from SharePoint List created a really cool solution as well. So we had 3 different teams winning this time. Typically, the winner on this has been always Victor Villain, which is commenting on the chat as well. I think he has won these hackathons for 3 times or so. So it was good that in quotes, it was good that Victor couldn't make it, so somebody else could actually win it. So obviously, Victor's feedback is super valuable as well. That was kind of a quick update on what happened this week and what is the Dev Kitchen. We mentioned that a few times in the social media, might have seen that, might have completely missed that. We're looking potentially, there's questions always that are we looking into having Dev Kitchens in Europe or in Asia. Answer is potentially. It really depends on the release schedules and what are we planning to do. So we do these Dev Kitchens for larger capabilities. I think this was the 5th Dev Kitchen. So we used to have a Dev Kitchen before we released SPFX, then one for extensions, one for Teams extensibility, and the 4th one is actually Duplicate in Europe for extensions, if I remember correctly. Anyway, that's kind of a quick recap on my side. I don't want to steal too much time from the presentation as well, but it was really nice to see people in here, and humongous amount of valuable feedback, which then influences what do we actually build. Again, coming back on the fact that your feedback 100% counts, because we want to build capabilities which you want to use, rather than we telling you what is the right and wrong way to do stuff. And that's not the way to go. Your input is super important for us. But now let's actually move in on the next topic. So PnP CSOM Core library, and I think Bert is ready to go and do a quick update on this one.
Yeah, sure. Quick update. So we released a version like early October. That one had, for the first time, SharePoint, the September 2019 schema as the default schema. So we did a lot of work And we were kind of looking like how stable is this, because we did a ton of changes, like we mentioned in the past. Overall, it's fairly stable, fairly good, but there are a couple of annoying bugs. So for that, we will be releasing an intermediate version next week, somewhere probably early next week, Monday, Tuesday timeframe. So what will that intermediate version get? It will get the bug fixes. I think that the most visible one is the one with the Office 365 group settings, where if you extract a template and want to apply it, essentially it doesn't work. You have to manually edit the template that you extracted. So that's fixed with some other additional minor provisioning-related fixes. One new capability is the usage of the is provisioning complete web API call. So with web API, I mean is provisioning complete is a property on the web object. Now, what will that one do? When you create a modern site using the APIs that we have, they return fairly quick, because you create a modern site and it's like 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds later, it's there. And it's kind of there, but in the background, there's a lot of async tasks happening after the API returned from the create site. Now, this might be good for you, but often if you want to provision a template on top of that created site, things are not there yet. So you get in a situation where the template suddenly starts to fail. Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails. So for that, we worked with the product group and we got this API in, and it will be a part of the next release. So we actually have a property to check, like, is all the async stuff ready? If it's ready, only then we continue and move forward. Looking forward, other things coming up is this further implementation of SharePoint 2019 schema, more PRs, and kind of the usual things. For PowerShell, several additional commandlets. Again, same with the core. We'll have a new PowerShell version early next week, an intermediate release for October. And there is changes in the get provisioning template. So we have this configuration file option, where you can specify a JSON file listing all the options that you want to give to the provisioning engine at extraction time, which makes it more manageable and less clunky. There is around the convert to PnP client-side page commandlet several updates, which I'll touch upon in actually my demo. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. And some additional updates around handling of client-side pages and web parts. Erwin,
yeah,
I already started, so go ahead, take over.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, the configuration part, actually, I will demo also in my demo. That's just what I wanted to add.
And let's go to the modernization tooling. Quick recap on what's happening there. We're going to talk about the latest also in the demo. Bert?
Yep, there will be a demo, but in short, again, also next week a new release, because all the Sites Core, PowerShell, and Modernization are really tied together. So we can't release one without the other. So we always kind of release them all together. What do we have? So one fix which is coming in, that one is enabling, if you have on-premises wiki pages, web pages, blog pages in SharePoint 2010, 2013, 2016, and those pages happen to have a web part on them, and you want to transform them from on-prem to online, that scenario is still failed. There was an oversight from us, which has been fixed right now. So with this in place, with the upcoming release, you will be able to take any on-prem page and create the modern equivalent in SharePoint Online. Whether that's a wiki, web part, blog, publishing page, whether that's 2010, 13, 16, 19, you just read it and transform it and have the destination set to SharePoint Online. So that's really cool. Another thing is another bug is the header. So if you modernize a page from on-prem, so let's say you read a wiki page on-prem or publishing page on-prem, sorry, that publishing page was created by a particular user. Now the logic that we had to set the author and the header was applied also to that page, which meant that quite often you ended up with invalid author information in the modern page. If you then went to edit the page, you got an error. You could easily delete the author and save the page again, and things is fixed. But now this problem actually is also fixed in the release, which is coming. So related to that, Paul Bullock from the community is working on account mapping. Once we have account mapping, we'll actually be able to just fix this problem in the right way, meaning we see a particular account in our prem, like domain/user, and we'll transform that to user@contoso.com as a UPN value for the equivalent user online. So at that point, we'll do like proper mapping of accounts, and your pages coming from on-prem to online will even be better. So that's really cool stuff coming up. And thanks, Paul, for working on that. Other things is section emphasis control. So when you modernize publishing pages, you do so by creating a page layout mapping, which kind of defines the mapping between the classic page layout and a modern page. Will enable you to use emphasis there, like particular section in different color. And same, there is vertical section support. So we're trying to keep up with all the cool stuff in modern pages and make them usable for transformations. For the scanner, actually been working a lot on the scanner this week. So Workflow Infopod got a pretty decent update. If there's time, I will show the new reports. A new component is block scanning, so I will show that in the demo as well. And pretty important, the scanner now can run, the next one, can run with sized read all. So people typically run the scanner using app-only permissions. That we always told everyone and documented, like, you have to give full control, which is okay, but people don't want that. So some customers really push back on full control. Now the scanner can just work with sized read all, so basic read permissions. The only thing that doesn't work yet is workflow, because workflow is too demanding on permissions, I would say. So we're looking into that if you can get it fixed, but for now, everything else besides workflow can run with the very low permissions. So I think that covers it. All the rest will be shown in the demo version.
Cool. Moving on things, so let's actually go to the demo side of the house. So now we're getting started. So Chris is on first, and then we go to Erwin's desktop, and then Bert's desktop. But Chris, take it away.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Chris Kent. I'm out of Knoxville, Tennessee now. Woo! As of 1 week. And so there's all that stuff. So let's take a look at some formatting stuff. So go to our classic Warrior Horses site, right? On the Warrior Horses site, right, I've applied several different kinds of formatting. I'm a horse. I come in here, right? I've got this new status column. It's very generic here, but I want to apply a format to it. All right. So I've seen a couple things on the call. So I come in here, I go to column settings, and I format this column. I get a nice design mode thing, but I see this advanced mode, and I click on it, and it tells me to paste some JSON in here, right? So I want to find some. So I'm over here in the sample repo, and I'm looking at my groupings, and I've got my categories, and I've got a status column. So maybe I jump down to status or progress. All right, I got a bunch of different options. I find this one, text conditional format. I can see it. It happens to be very conveniently my values. How did that happen? Right, so I want to grab this. So it's pretty cool. I just click on the JSON file, all right, and then I can, without having to do anything crazy with GitHub, I copy this. I'm going to literally copy that, and then I'm going to go back. I'm going to paste that sucker in here, and when I preview that, wow, it worked, and that's great, and that's magic. And if that's all you need to do, well, then there you go. You don't even need to know what all this stuff is. But what happens if, say, instead of done, you know, our status is the word completed, right? Or instead of has issues, it's done be broke or something like that, right? So now I've got to actually look in this craziness here, right? So now I've got to understand this a little more, like what is this JSON stuff I've just pasted in here, and how do I start editing it, and how do I make changes so that when I do something, right, I'm like, I don't need that colon. It tells me valid, and I cry and I scream, or nay, as in this case, right? So let's take a look at some of this stuff. So if I come over here, we'll jump to our slides. So who is Jason? What is he doing? What do we need to know about him? So we're going to do a very quick JSON syntax crash course. All right, so let's take a look. So the whole idea is this object, right? It's just text. You can write it in Notepad. You can write it in that tiny window. You can write it in VS Code, which I recommend, right? But all it is name value pairs, right? So you got a name and you got a value. That's it, all right? So objects begin with these squigglies here. There's a squiggly and a squiggly. I'm sure that's the official term. All right, and then each name has got this little colon between it. So you got your name and your value, and you put a little colon in there, all right? And then if you got more than one of those, and it doesn't matter the order, you just put a comma between them. Pretty straightforward. Again, you can write this right there in that window. Now you can get a little more advanced, right? You can start to get things like an array. So an array is ordered, and you could tell it's ordered because it's got this more boring bracket, right? It's not got that cool squiggly. It's all square and says, well, the order matters. And you can put a bunch of stuff inside there, right, with more squigglies and more name value pairs, and you can keep drawing on the slides. I've just discovered Zoom It. It's very exciting, right? So arrays begin with those square brackets. Values, again, are separated by that comma. And then a value can be anything, right? Almost, right? It can be an array like up here. Right, we got an array. It can be, a direct quote here or a direct string within quotes. Right, you can put a number. You can put true or false, like in the debug mode, or you can put whole objects inside here, like in style. Woo! So now everybody here knows JSON. Perfect. So how does that actually apply to list formatting? Right. So okay, we get the basics here, but how do I translate into that into making my pretty stuff, or with my icons and my colors and all that? Well, let's take a look. So here is a very exciting format, right? Here's a real format. We'll grab it, and this is what it's going to do. So if you've got a value like a text column or a choice, and the value is Y is polar bear, if you apply this formatting, that's what you'll get. All right, that's what it's going to look like. If you kind of take a look at it, it's broken down into 3 elements, right? We've got a big div, we've got a couple of spans, and this is the actual HTML that's going to be generated under the scenes. So what's important to know is that we're going to take one text format, and we're going to generate another text format of HTML, and that for the browser is going to draw some things, right? So you can think of this list formatting JSON as just an HTML generator, right? Which may or may not help you. It helps me quite a bit when I think about it that way, and I often draw things out like this on a piece of paper before I get into all the squigglies and everything else, right? Because this is a pretty simple one, but you can imagine you get a lot of lines in some of these. So let's jump in here. So the first thing is you'll see this schema and all the samples, and you'll see it all over the place. It's completely optional. So it's really helpful if you're going to edit this in something like, say, VS Code or the column format or anything else, because it'll provide IntelliSense. Just cut and paste that thing in there, but it's not required in any way. So I often leave it out when I'm just experimenting. So the first thing you'll see, and this is always required, is this Elm type, right? And if we look at that Elm visualization here, right? You can see I've just got 3 boxes, right? I got the big box, I got the 2 little boxes here, and you can see I've got an Elm here, Elm type here, and an Elm type here, right? So every Elm type you see, each object is going to have basically a box it's going to draw. So I got my first one, a div, because I just want to hold some stuff, right? And then I've got this attribute, right, where I want to apply a class. So I've got sp-field -severity -severe warning, which really just means give me a pink background. So great naming convention, but there you go, right? Pink background, and you can see it actually just adds that class, SP field severity, severe warning right here. All right, there's a whole series of classes you can add. You can check those out, but then you just slap them in there. And then I've got my children, right? So I wanted to break this up a little bit because I wanted an icon, I wanted some text. So I have this children, and I'm just going to slap more of these objects in there. All right, so the first one, I've got a span, and I've split this into 2 spans, so I can have an icon and I can have text, but I wanted to control the spacing between them. That's why I've done 2 of these, right? Now, if I apply this attribute icon name, right, there's a whole series of attributes, but this icon name, all it's going to do is allow me to pick from 1,000+ UI fabric icons, and it's case sensitive, but I slap that in there and I can do an icon. In this case, I've chosen the warning icon, which looks like a triangle with an exclamation point. But if I want to do that conditionally, I can do all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. And I want to make sure that it's not right up against the edge, right? So I really wanted to make sure that, especially with my background color, I had a little spacing. So I do this padding left. It's just a CSS attribute, right, of 4 pixels. And then I want to put my text here. In this case, I've got another span, but I have my first kind of magic text here, or my placeholder field. So I've got my @current field, and that just means whatever the value is, whether it's a text, it's a number, it's even a calculated value, right? I could slap that in there. If I wanted to reference another column from the view, I could certainly do that. Right? Or if I wanted to write a complex expression, I could do that. But there's a series of these placeholder tokens. There's things like @me, which is the current user's email address, or @now, it's the current date and time at render, and so on, right? So I can just put that in there, and I know that when it renders, for each one of these rows, it's going to swap that out and put whatever the value is in there. In this case, it's Y's polar bear. Right, and again, I wanted some padding here. I wanted those 4 pixels of padding. All right, and you can see all of this time, all of this, which looks kind of complex if you're looking at it for the first time, is just generating this HTML down here, which then generates this pretty image up here. Okay? Now everybody understands JSON perfectly, and they can go write all they need to. Good. Okay, so check out the full documentation on all of the things that are available to you in column formatting and view formatting. You go to spdev-column formatting on the AKMS there. If you wanted to see that specific sample, it's the text conditional format. But again, we've got nearly 100 samples in there to do all sorts of things. And I highly recommend starting with the samples and then tweaking from there. So you don't necessarily have to start with all that JSON syntax we just went through. But the idea is it's not near as scary as you think. And if you've got specific questions about JSON in general, right, you can go to json.org and check out some of the examples and understand some of that format and everything there. And that's about it. That's everything I got. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. These are really, really useful as well, because the basics of getting started is insanely important to get covered, and so that people can actually get unblocked on using these things. So really, really, really great stuff. Erwin, you're next on the queue.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I learned some new things like boring brackets. That was a new one to me. But
yeah, that's actually in the JSON.org. They define the different terms.
Exactly. Yeah, there will be some boring brackets in what I will show too. Right. So what I will show today is how to take an existing site. You're looking at one. This is one of the Look v2 sites. And I will convert this one into a template, so you can apply it to your own tenant. So what I do when I start with this is I have a brief look at what is the site about, what are we looking at. So when I notice a couple of things here, is that like we have a menu here at the top, and then my next question is there, like, for instance, a footer? So I scroll all the way down, and yes, there is a footer here. So that's important to know. It's obviously a modern site. There's a bunch of web parts here. We have a vertical section. I'm just scrolling down through the page if I see something that jumps out to me. And right now, there's just a bunch of web parts here, some text here and there. So the next step I'll take is that I go to my to the site contents. And that is interesting for me because there I see which lists are there. And if there actually are items in those lists, you see that conveniently at this page. And that means that I can actually limit what I extract from this site to those lists only. The rest are of no interest for me. So you see here, there's like 5 documents, there's a bunch of site assets. We have 2 events here, and we have 8 site pages. So those are the things that are of interest for me to start to export. Now, in the last release we did this month, the latest release, we introduced, and if you attended the last community call, we introduced the configuration option for the extracting of a template. And that I will use today to limit the content of this template that I'm extracting. So I'm using, obviously, PowerShell. And what I did already is I created a folder, and I connected already with PowerShell, with Connect PnP Online, to this specific site here. And what I did, I created a JSON file, an extract configuration file. And I realized this is totally undocumented right now. This will come, but if you're interested on how you use this file, just rewatch the video, the recording of this session. It should get you up and running. So if we open this configuration file, which is containing a lot of squigglies and boring brackets, go here, then you see that we actually follow, and if you carefully watch, and if you're new to JSON, if you listen to the session from Chris, then you should totally understand what you're looking at right now here. So here we have a schema. If I look here, so we have actually officially a schema now located on developer.microsoft.com, which describes this configuration file. So what I first tell the engine is what should it actually parse? What should it actually start to extract? And I wanted to extract lists, pages, navigation, site footer, site header, and web settings. You can add more items to it. Because of the schema behind it, we have all the options for you listed just to pick from. So then for some of the things that we're exporting, you can actually make specific settings. For instance, for the site footer here, we can tell it to flip the switch remove existing nodes in the extracted template to true. It will not remove the nodes from the site that you're extracting from. It will just, in the template that we create, flip that switch to true, meaning that if you apply the template to an existing site, we will first clear out the navigation of the footer. Then, if we go to the pages, I say, okay, listen, for instance, you're extracting a template from a specific tenant and you want to apply that template to another tenant. It's very often that the users are not present on the other tenant. So what we're saying here is, okay, clear out the author information where we can find it in the modern pages. So for instance, web parts sometimes have references to authors. Pages itself has a reference to an author. So clear that value out. So remove all those usernames. And we're also telling it, the engine, to include all client-side pages, not just the home page, which is the default behavior, but just say, give me all client-side pages. The same thing that I applied for the site footer, removing the notes, we also set for navigation. And then I'm limiting what I will export when it comes to lists. Now, for instance, I say, okay, export the events list, but include all the items that you find in that list. When you create data rows, skip the empty fields that have no value. Just don't put them in the resulted template. We don't need them. And then I can actually apply a specific query to that list when I extract that information. And I say, I only want the title, category, location, etc. fields. Then if I scroll a bit down here, say, okay, give me the documents. Give me all the documents from the document library. Include the items and include the attachments. So download the attachments. Now you can set the page size here. You don't necessarily have to do that, but this is just for performance reasons. If you have like thousands of documents, you don't want to query all 1,000 documents in one go. You want to do it page by page by page by page. And the page size you can define here. But I have set it now to 10. So this is my configuration. Very important is that you also flip the persist asset files to true. If you set this one to true, we will try to extract images from the modern pages and add them to your template. So this is the configuration file. So if I now go to PowerShell, and it's a weird thing with the latest version of code, but if I go to PowerShell now and say get PnP provisioning template, output to an XML file, and I say configuration, extract configuration, and I press enter and sit back and relax. And what it will do now is the typical extraction process. It will go through all the artifacts it finds. It will actually go through the document. So if in the meantime I open my file explorer and navigate to that folder, you don't see that, I do it on a different screen. There's the demo folder, demo, the landing. And it's a bit small, maybe it's a bit hard to see, but you see there's now already a shared documents folder here. And there's a subfolder in there, and there we have the documents. It's actually currently downloading from the server or from your site. So if we continue, you see now the site assets popping up here, and there we have the assets for the site pages, and there's a home page, and images are coming down now and are being extracted to the file system. So all the content that is that we find in that site, in the lists and in the client-side pages, are being saved to the file system. So it will take a bit longer. We're still working here. So what I did then is I created a template of a tenant template. And that's here. And this just basically, I took an existing tenant template, and I just removed a lot of things and cleaned it up a bit. And this tenant template, if you want to find one of those, you can find them in our repos. There's where we have the lookbook templates located. There you can find these tenant templates. So if I open this one with Visual Studio, because I want schema support, there we go. This is my base template, and there are some things missing here. So for instance, here the template is empty. So what I do now is if I open that other template that has been recently extracted, let me get my thing here, there, and we say, there is my template. So I say get contents site XML to the clipboard. There, and I paste that in. And there we have my template located. Now there's a bit of things around it. you see here some duplicate things that you have to take away. So we take the XML away, provisioning, templates, this one go away, and now we scroll down. And we have to clean up a bit more here. That one goes. And this should do it, I think. And it's complaining about white space there. So I saw some red thing here. That's interesting. I don't know why this is actually failing. It could be of the build I'm using with the schema behind the scenes. Okay, doesn't matter that much. So here we have the template. And this is a tenant template, and you see the preferences here, and I have some things that are relevant in my case, the site title, which is going to be, in this case, my site, and the site URL / sites, my URL. And here we have the sequence. And the sequence is that element in the template that actually creates the site collection for you. So it's creating a communication site, and it picks the topic site design to create a communication site. And you see here the title is being set to the this parameter, the site title. If we scroll a bit to the right, then we see here the description is empty. The URL is being set to the value of the site URL parameter. It's not a hub site, and we use the current user login name as the owner, the current user that is running the commandlet. And here we have the template it's running. And you see here provisioning template references main template. And what this means is that when we create the site collection, after the site collection has been created, we apply this template that should be in this file. And in this case, the template is called like this. So I replace this one with main template. So now the engine knows which template to apply. And if we scroll down into this template and collapse a few things, you see here all the files, for instance. All the references to the files are there with the correct target location. So we have the documents, we have the images there, we have the client-side pages here. We have all the things here. And let me double check here because I think I might see an issue. Yeah, okay, there we go. So schema of my tenant template was wrong. It was 03. I flipped it now to 09, and now there should not be any references anymore that are failing. No, all good now. All is green, all is not green actually. So if I save this tenant template, so now I have a tenant template that I could actually apply to my tenant if I wanted to test it. But I want to grab this all together and make it a single file. So I want all the files, the shared documents, the site assets, and the tenant template file into one single PnP file. So what I do then is I read it into a variable. I say read PnP tenant template. And I specify the tenant template. And there we go. So if I just sort of PowerShell way, I can have, okay, so we have a template here with all properties. And if I want, I could start to tweak things here and add things, but all with code if you want to. But we don't want that. We just want to save this as a PnP file. So I say now save PnP tenant template out. And this will be landing.pnp template, that variable that I just put my template in there, and press enter. And there we go. And now the result is a PnP file with all the files in there. And you see it's actually a pretty big one because there's a lot of images there, and some of the images are actually very large. So now I could actually apply this template. So if I say, if I connect to my root of my tenant, and remember, in the template itself, if we look up here, the URL by default will be my URL, /site/ my URL. But what I can do also is I say apply PnP tenant template, and then I say the landing, the land PnP, and then I say parameters, and I say site URL equals sites the result. And I took a wrong parameter here. It's not template. There we go. Now it executes the sequence, and it starts to creating the communication side. You see it creating the result. And that should take a few seconds. And there we go. So now I can already navigate to the result. There is the communication side that we just created. And it's starting to apply now. So if I see the site comes for list events, so if I go here to my site contents, see this, the home page is there, so events is there, but there's 0 items in there. So I reload this a few times. Very nervously click reload.
On this one, just a word of a warning. If you do this to sites which you create for a lot, it might actually cause the template to which is applied to be failed, right, Erwin? So if you go to the front page of the site and keep on refreshing and waiting that to get modified, it might actually cause the template apply to fail.
Right, yeah. And there's another thing I have to mention. If you have a hub site navigation, if you create a hub site navigation in the tenant template or in a template, and you might see that the navigation has not been updated. And then you're like, okay, what's happening here? You click on edit, and then you see that the whole navigation structure that you just applied is actually there. And then if you click on cancel to not edit the actual navigation, then you'll notice that the navigation has been updated. The way around this is to resist opening the site before the engine has been finished provisioning a template. It has to do with caching. So if you do not go to the site before the site has been fully provisioned and then navigate to the site, you will notice that the hub site navigation is just there normally without any problem. So we're going nicely on here. So if I go to my site contents, let's see if there's already some data there. You see the site assets coming in. See the 5 documents, they're already there. So slowly and surely, now it's creating the pages, and the pages is a multi-phase process. It first creates the pages, and then it goes into each page and updates it. So there we go.
Sorry, Erwin, I'm just messing up your demo here, jumping between, like I always do. So now that you're doing this, while we're waiting to apply to actually happen, can you pinpoint where would we have example templates which people can actually test and see?
Yes, I can. That's github.com SharePoint SP Dev provisioning templates. This repo, you'll find a tenant folder. And here you find all the templates in there. And for instance, the one that I just used and the site I extracted the templates from, you find a fully packed version here in the landing folder, for instance.
And for those who are wondering, these are the templates which will be coming up pretty soon, obviously in Ignite timeframe, through different services and exposed for you to be available also from UIs. But the templates themselves, they do exist already.
Yeah, yes. And every template has a fixed structure. So for information, here you find the PnP file. If you go into the source folder, you'll find the actual XML version with all the assets that is needed for that specific template. So let's see where this one is. It's done running. So let's hope this, if I reload this page now, let me see the content. We see there's 2 events, there are 8 site pages, 5 documents, etc. And if I go to my site, there we go. Now, what I didn't do is I modified the theme. So you see it gets the default theme. There's a bit of a problem with the current APIs. We cannot extract an existing theme from a modern theme from a site. So I want to show you how you can actually extract a theme from your tenant. That's the last thing I will show you today. So if you go to change the look and you go to theme, you can pick one of the themes that are provisioned to your tenant. Say, I want to, instead of using a tenant scoped theme, I want a theme that is specific to this site collection. What you can do is take an existing tenant theme, like composer team theme, for instance here, and extract that one. So if you go to PowerShell again, you say get PnP tenant theme, And if you just enter this as is, it will enumerate all the themes from your tenant. And it was the Contoso theme that I wanted. So what I do then is name Contoso theme. There we go. And this one has a palette property. There we go. And it's just a list of value, key value. So what I can do now is say convert to JSON, and I get a JSON version. I clip that into my clipboard, copy that to my clipboard. Then I go to my template. I go to my provisioning template. I say PnP theme name. It's a required parameter. We just leave it empty. It doesn't require a name, and we paste this in, and that's it. And this is how you create your add your theme to your template and to your site. And from now on, you just repackage the PnP file by reading the template, saving the template as a PnP file, and the result is that you did actually a full round trip, and all the web parts that were in the original are now still there, and everything is over and works as is. Let me see some images here that failed for some reason. I would have to check that. But as I said, I run a tiny bit newer version of the engine where some modifications have been made here. So, but this is the idea behind it. And that's my story for today.
Excellent work, Erwin. Really great to see the steps, and this is going to be obviously a reference video for doing these things. The video itself will be definitely available in the YouTube channel after this call as well. Well, within a few days or so. And now, Bert, we didn't leave too much time for you, unfortunately, but let's do a recap on the modernization tooling. The whole point, obviously, is getting people excited and understanding what's available. So that whenever they need to understand the modernization steps, they are aware of what we provide. So Bert, take it away.
Yep. So modernization update. Modernization has been there for a while, and modernization kind of exists out of two elements. Is a scanner that helps you understand where are you today, what is classic, what can you optimize, and then there is page transformation, which is the technology that enables you to modernize classic pages into modern pages. Now, for talking about page transformation, one of the things that we did not yet support was blog pages. So if you look at SharePoint, in SharePoint you have wiki pages is the most common page. Then you have publishing pages, also quite common. Blog pages is there as well, not that used a lot, but we didn't cover that, so we're covering that right now. And web part pages is the least used, I think, which is quite old, but we already covered that. So with the support of blog pages, we are actually covering everything. All the possible pages can be transformed to modern pages. All the content I'm showing, all the tools, all the guidance can be found from four, I need to count real, 3 places. PnP-modernize is the main landing page, and underneath you will find, if you want information about the scanner, you go to PnP-modernization scanner, or if you're looking into page transformation, PnP-page transformation. All of these are underneath this main PnP-modernize location. So let's do a quick demo. Here we have a drone site. This is a classic blog with one blog post. The blog post has some formatting, pretty basic thing. It has category events. So let's imagine this is the blog. Now, when you want to transform a blog page to a modern page, we force you to go cross-site collection. Same as with publishing pages, we cannot do this as an in-place upgrade because a blog page mixing, like that blog site, mixing it with modern site pages gets like a really strange setup, and your categories, archives, all these things don't work anymore. So it will be a big mess. So that's why we force you to create the new blog page in a modern site, which is a communication site in my demo. So let's start doing that. So actually, before I do that, go over here. Here is the modern target site. This site will receive the modern blog page once it's done. How to do so? I'm going to use PnP PowerShell. So let's first connect to my source site using the connect PnP online commandlet. I often use the SPO management shell option because it always works in all. If you use two-factor authentication, for example, this works really nice. So it's a recommended way to connect. So like that, my password. All right, we should be in. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to copy the actual conversion command. I'm not such a good typer as Erwin, so I just take the safe way. I just copy things. But what you see here is a converted PnP client-side page commandlet. We're grabbing a block. Now, a block doesn't have like a ASPX file name. It's a list item. And that's why we identify blocks based upon a title. So you just specify the block title. On the first one that matches the title will be taken. We have to specify that we're converting a block page. I'm doing the override. So if the target page was already there, then I'm overwriting it. That's fine. Important target web URL. So what will be the target that will receive this copy of the blog page? I'm also showing off here the new log type console. We had logging towards the file, logging into SharePoint, but not into console. So I'm showing that as well. And we have some new options like key page creation modification information, essentially keeping the page author and editor information, enabling this modernized, this converted block to be a news post via the -post as news. I'm populating the author and the page header, which is new as well, and I'm copying metadata. So the block had a category events. So let's see what happens if we copy that as well. So let's hit enter. And let's see what happens. So with the log type console, you immediately start seeing things popping up on the screen. So there's a ton of output. But this is quite handy if you kind of wondering, like, is it stuck? What is it doing? Where is it in which particular phase? Sometimes if you page transformation from complex pages with a lot of assets, it might take a while. Now, while this is running, what the transformation will do is, in this case, also copy the asset. So remember that classic blog page had an image in there. It will be copied over to the modern page. So let's go this one, sorry, over here. Let's go over here. Let's refresh. And hopefully we have a blog page. And we have this composed D99 drone page, opening up the page. And voila, here we have our modern version out of this one with the header nicely populated, with the image in there, with the text converted. It just uses the usual transformation tag that you already used to when you convert the wiki pages to publishing pages. So it's the same tag, but now it applies to blog pages. And
Bert, sorry for jumping in. I love your way of telling. You all are already aware of this transformation traffic, and you're used to use.
I hope you all are aware. Correct. So not everyone has been using this, but it's really cool tech, and check it out because there's a massive amount of classic pages sitting in your tenants, and this is a way for you to upgrade them. All pages, whether it's wiki, web part, blog, publishing, everything can be upgraded. You also see that we use the post as news. So here we see this particular blog as a news post 1 hour ago, because I created this blog page just before the demo. So you see that it kept the timestamp. But this gives you like a nice way to move over blog pages. One last thing to check real quick is the metadata. Did the metadata come over? Yes, no. And yes, the metadata came over here as well. Kind of running short on time, but one last thing is the scanner update. Like you might be wondering, like, okay, cool, Bert, I can modernize my blog pages, but where are they? Which blog pages are relevant? How do I understand? I have like 10,000 site collections with what 1 million sub-sites. I don't know where to start. And if you not know where to start, you run the scanner. So the scanner that will come out next week, the 2.6 version, will have an option to scan for blogs. And essentially, it's a pretty basic report, but it will tell you like, it will list all the blog sites. It will count the blog pages, the blogs in the blog site, when they were modified and which language. So like this case, I have blogs that's filtered on 2015. Yeah, probably not really relevant to modernize those because they're so old. But in this case, let's see what I did in 2019. Yeah, this is more relevant, and you can further zoom into other to particular date range, a particular language. You can filter on which blogs have a lot of pages. They're probably also more relevant than the other ones. So this kind of helps you identify what's relevant content to be transformed. And just reading the chat, Rodrigo, yes, this also works on-prem. So if your blog page is on-prem, you just connect to on-prem SharePoint, and boom, it ends up as a modern page in SharePoint Online, like all the other pages. All right, this sums it up. It's a really quick, short demo on Transformation Tech and Scanner. Hope you like it. And then let's, Vested, please take over.
Yep, thank you, Bert. Thank you. Just to recap, I'm jumping immediately on the next community call, so sorry for being super fast on closing as well. The next SharePoint General Dev SIG meeting is 2 weeks from now, 7 a.m. Pacific time on 31st of October. The next SharePoint Framework Special Interest Group call is week from now, 7 a.m. and 24th of October. We definitely want people to join, and obviously, please give us feedback if something is missing in this course. If you would like to cover something else, please let us know. That's the only way we can address your asks. But I think that's it for now. So thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Bert, Erwin, and Chris for the great demos. The recording will be available within 24 hours in the typical YouTube channel. So thank you everybody. We'll be definitely in touch. Bye-bye.